Hi,
Okay.
everybody. Hello. Welcome to the Business of Biodiversity with Berkeley Haas. Please feel free to drop in the chat where you're joining us from. We're so excited to dive into the importance of corporate sustainability, how the focus of many sustainability programs has shifted over the last few years, and most importantly, chat with Danner Dowd-Martin right here, the Director of Campus Sustainability at the Haas School of Business at UC Berkeley, and about what Haas is doing to prioritize sustainability. So we're going to give people a little bit of time to trickle in here. Like I said, feel free to drop in the chat. See, we've got some people from Boston. That's awesome. Our home base for Best Bees. So that's great. Yeah, thanks for being here. Winnipeg. Hello, Canada. New Hampshire. Poland. Oh, I love an
Yeah.
international audience. Chicago. Oh, that's awesome. Thank you all for making it. While we give people a little bit of time to join, we're going to launch a quick poll. So we're curious about your favorite non-bee pollinator, your favorite way to eat honey, and whether or not you like to garden. So check out that poll. Oh, and then it also asks which job title best describes you. So yeah, feel free to drop that in there as well. Pasadena, California is represented. It's awesome.
Wow, we're from all over. This is amazing, Nola.
Yeah, this is awesome.
I
I love
love
it.
it.
Colorado, Texas, amazing.
Wow.
Danner, what's your favorite non-bee pollinator?
Oh man. So I have to admit, I love when butterflies fly by me. I usually acknowledge and say hello to them, but I would be remiss if I didn't also acknowledge some of the not the the pollinators that we don't acknowledge often and say bats. How
Yeah.
about you?
Yeah, bats are a really cute one, but I just have to go with hummingbirds. They're just so tiny and perfect, and they're little tiny nests. I don't know if you've ever seen one out there in nature, but it's just so cool. So yeah.
I love hummingbirds too. They're all amazing.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. They're so cute. There's so many awesome pollinators, beetles, all sorts of bugs, birds, everything. It's so cool. Um,
Yeah. Go
yeah.
ahead. Sorry. I was
Uh,
going to say ants too. I mean,
yeah.
that's interesting, right?
Thing
Ants
that's
are
just kind of crawling all over the plants and flowers. They bring it all along with them. So, um, the next question is, what's your favorite way to eat honey?
mm. So lately, I've been using honey in a lot of my baking. My kids love my zucchini muffins for breakfast, and so I use honey instead of sugar. So I feel like they're healthy. And one of the things that I'm so excited about is that our Haas honey is being used in our cafe, and so our community will be able to enjoy honey in some of the items in our cafe. How about you?
I love having honey on just some toast with butter. I grew up in a Turkish household, and so we used to have that for breakfast pretty much every morning when I was a little kid. It's a little
That
less healthy.
No, but that sounds amazing. I might go make that for lunch today. Yeah,
Yeah,
really good.
do it.
Yum. Yeah,
Get some
I
cardio.
will. Yeah.
Cool. Before we close the chat, let's just share about ourselves. Some green thumb gardening. You have
Mm.
that?
Yes, I love to garden, and I just wish I had more time, but I have lots of plants around, and again, I always I've got two boys, and they like to play a lot of games around my plants, and I'm always basically saying, if you hurt my plants, I'm going to be really upset with you because there's soccer balls and things. So I'm really a lover of plants. Yeah. How about you?
Yeah, I love plants. The extent of my gardening is mostly house plants. And it's funny because your kids are a threat to your plants, and my fur kids, my cat is completely against me in terms of houseplants. I have to keep them high up and away from her. Otherwise, she will destroy all of my progress. So that's not too fun out there. But I do love them. I have a good variety and brings a lot of light to the space, a lot of green.
Enjoy. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's been a good amount of time to let people join. So we'll close the poll now and see the results. And then I'll let you know what everyone said. So looks like the top favorite and pollinator other than bees are butterflies and hummingbirds. So looks like we influenced. And then beetles and moths and other, you guys got an honorable mention. What's your favorite way to eat honey? It looks like most people enjoy it in tea and in yogurt. Couple on roasted veggies, yeah, with carrots. And yogurt underneath the carrots. That's a good one. Looks like we've got a lot of gardeners in the audience. That's awesome. No, I can't keep plants alive. I'm sorry, you guys. Those two of you that voted that. And we've got a lot of sustainability professionals and employees, a couple of students. That's awesome.
Good.
Great. All right. All right. This has been fun. So let's go ahead and get started. So my name is Nola. Whoops. My name is Nola, and I'm the Director of Products and Programming here at Best Bees. I started at Best Bees in 2016 as a co-op beekeeper with the Northeastern University Co-op program. Then I went back to school, finished my degree in biology, and then when I came back to Best Bees in 2018, I started working in the office, clerk of the office, moved up, went on to be a regional manager. And it was around that time that I went back to school for my master's in environmental science and public policy. And now here I am directing products and programming, really getting these pollinator programs up and off the ground. So that's me. I'll pass the mic over to Danner now.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, Nola. I'm really excited to be here. It's an honor. My name is Danner Dowd-Martin. I am the director of Haas Campus Sustainability at the School of Business here at UC Berkeley. I use she, her pronouns. I would like to first acknowledge that I'm on ancestral land of the Ohlone people, the successors of the sovereign Verona Band of Alameda County. And this land was and continues to be of great importance to the Muwekme Ohlone tribe and other familiar descendants of the Verona Band. And like you, I have had a real transition to my role here at Haas. I kind of created it, actually. I was started off as a volunteer of the Green Team about 8+ years ago. And over the last 8 years, I've carved out more and more time in this role to sort of show our community that this was really important, that my job now as the Director of Sustainability is to make sure that we, as a business school, are acting in the most sustainable way as possible. And so it really helped when our Dean Harrison, announced that her 3 strategic pillars included sustainability. And we were able to create an Office of Sustainability and Climate Change at the business school, which is really rare. And as part of my role, now 100% as of December, so I'm coming up as in a year, I get to create different initiatives around sustainability. And we also here at Haas are trying to make sure that all of our students, all of our business students get education in sustainability in their core, and that they walk away with some understanding of what climate change is going to do and how they can be leaders in this field. So I'm really excited to be here, and I'm really excited to talk about our pollinator garden and working with you all at Best Bees, and how we've been able to really commit to biodiversity on our campus and how that's been a part of our sustainability initiative.
Thank you, Danner. Yeah, we're so glad you're here to offer your perspective and lived experience as a sustainability professional. Oh, and I forgot to mention at the beginning that if you all out in the audience have questions, please put those in the Q&A section, and not right in the webinar chat, because we'll have a Q&A at the end. And so those are the easiest place for me to go and see all of your questions. So, all right. So you mentioned that one of the ways that Haas is walking the walk is with Best Bees beehives and supporting biodiversity. So I want to review exactly what we're talking about with biodiversity, why it's so important for institutions to prioritize in their sustainability initiatives. So, intro to biodiversity. So biodiversity is the variety of all living things and their interactions with each other and their habitat. So why is it important for ecological and economic success? Albert Einstein has a quote, and he says, "Our task must be to free ourselves by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature and its beauty." But why do we need to do this? What's important about it? So besides the intrinsic value of nature and all living things, a diverse ecosystem or biome provides humans with raw materials for consumption and production, and many livelihoods and businesses are dependent on biodiversity for economic success. So biodiversity risk is a financial risk. And in addition to raw materials, variety of life, so biodiversity, provides humans and other living creatures with life support, such as oxygen, clean air, clean water, pest control, and of course, pollination of plants. So having variety out there really equals security and mitigated risk. So for example, you all might know the saying, you can't put all of your eggs in one basket. So it's really good to diversify and have diversity. 50% of the world's economy depends on a functioning ecosystem. So more than half of the global GDP, which would be around 44 trillion US dollars of economic value generation, is moderately or highly dependent on nature and its services. And that's per the World Economic Forum. So it's important to understand what are these drivers of biodiversity loss. So a new study led by researchers from Queen's University Belfast has shown that the global loss of biodiversity caused by human industrialism is significantly more alarming than previously thought. Their findings show that almost half of the species on Earth are declining towards extinction, and only 3% of species on Earth are showing signals of recovery. So the core threats to biodiversity are human population growth, land use, and unsustainable resource use. But that human population growth section, it doesn't need to be a problem if we all just live sustainably with the land. People who are indigenous to the lands that they've been living on since the dawn of humans have been doing this for a long time, and they really have that local knowledge of their land. So despite the fact that 50% of the global economy depends on a functioning ecosystem, just 0.1% of GDP is actually directed towards biodiversity restoration. And again, so extinction of life is mainly due to changes in land, water, and sea use. So that's leading to habitat loss. I always think about all the whales in the ocean that are constantly dodging our cargo ships and losing their habitat to our industry. Then natural resource overexploitation, not letting a population bounce back after you use it as a resource. Introduction of invasive or exotic species. So it's like can't bring any organic material through TSA, can't introduce anything to an environment where it's not native to or usually there. Pollution, fossil fuel emissions, and climate change. I'm sure we are extremely familiar with these as well. So get my slide to change. There we go. So companies, corporations, and institutions have a very large role to play. So at the tip of the iceberg is the physical space and natural resources that their buildings and campuses take up. But that footprint increases when you take into account their supply chain and the physical space and natural resources that go into maintaining every point along that chain. So with such large and impactful environmental footprints, these organizations have a responsibility to mitigate their negative effects and amplify the ways in which they can support a healthy planet. So in the past, much of the focus of environmental initiatives, as well as environmental regulations for businesses, have been upon mitigating atmospheric climate change. So 83% of Fortune 500 companies have climate-related targets, which is awesome. But only 9% have targets to address deforestation and seabed loss. So those are areas that fall under nature and biodiversity. There's now an increasing focus on the degradation of nature and loss of biodiversity because, as it turns out, ensuring the integrity of all ecosystems and the protection of biodiversity is one of our best defenses against climate change. So the climate crisis and the biodiversity crisis are two sides of the exact same coin. Oh, did I skip a slide? I did. So now we're on this slide. As a result, corporate sustainability standards are evolving. The majority of companies are increasing their sustainability budgets and looking for ways to mitigate their negative impact on nature and promote biodiversity. So making these changes is really important, not just because of companies, corporations, and institutions that have large footprints that I mentioned earlier. So yes, these entities take up a lot of space on the planet and therefore should probably take care of it, but they also wield social influence as well. So large organizations, they're made up of people. And at the end of the day, these companies can really lead by example. Exposure to workplace sustainability efforts can inspire people to take action in their own lives on an individual basis. This can be difficult, though, as sometimes corporate sustainability initiatives can feel abstract or distant to those not directly involved or engaged in the progress being made. So, for example, a company could change the suppliers in their supply chain to ones with better environmental credentials. While this is an important and impactful initiative, the switch can feel intangible to employees, investors, stakeholders. So pollinator programs, on the other hand, are pretty different. The bees may be observed in action as they provide the essential ecosystem service of pollination. You can taste the honey made from the nectar of the flowers growing in your local environment. And beehives can serve as a tangible catalyst that inspires and influences nature and biodiversity-focused initiatives. So Berkeley Haas has a pollinator program with Best Bees, and they're also asking making other affordable, incredible efforts, to work towards their sustainability goals. So I'll let Danner take it from here. I just talked a lot at you guys about biodiversity, and tell us a little bit more about the corporate sustainability and how it looks like at Haas and what they're currently working on. And of course, why it all matters.
Yeah, thanks, Nola. We're in a really interesting space in that we are at the business school, but also part of UC Berkeley. So UC Berkeley has some really strong sustainability initiatives and goals around zero waste and carbon neutrality. And we get to be a part of all those initiatives, but we also want to stand out as a leading business school and really take advantage of the fact that we have all these brilliant students in our ecosystem and that we want to really embed not only sustainability from an academic perspective, but also from a built environment. So one of our buildings, Chu Hall, is a zero waste building. It's a WELL certified building and it's a LEED building. Those are all through the U.S. Green Building Council, a third-party verification system. And I actually got to work on the True Zero Waste part of this initiative or the certifications. And it really is a proud moment because this building has been deemed the greenest academic building in the nation. And there's a lot of amazing things about this building. One of them being that we have to divert 90% of our waste from landfill. We do not have landfill bins in this building. So talk about systems change. You have folks that are standing over the bins and they only see compost, recycling, and bins for reusables. And so we're really challenging our community to make a different choice when it comes to waste systems and how they use their purchasing power and really asking them to take a second before they put whatever they have in their hand into one of the bins. And that's just one of the initiatives that we're working on. if you don't mind, and could you advance the slide for me?
There you go.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Course.
Haas is, as I mentioned, part of the UC Berkeley ecosphere. We are really excited because in 2028, we will be having a new campus energy system that will be completely green. However, Haas is not going to be on that system for about 15 years. So one of the things that we're really trying to do is figure out what our carbon emissions are as a business school. So scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. And we're really working to reduce those emissions from not only trying to figure out how to get solar on our buildings and move to clean energy, but also really around our waste streams and scope 3 emissions. So there is a policy at the campus level to eliminate single-use plastics by 2030. We're a very competitive business school, so we have also a single-use plastics elimination policy by 2025. So we want to see if we can really push the envelope and make some significant differences in reducing our waste stream. And the reason that we want to do that is for many reasons, but we really want to take responsibility for how our waste streams affect the communities that deal with them. So one of the things that we're doing is we're planting trees in the different areas where we haul all of our landfill, compost, and recycling. So just on Tuesday, we planted 51 trees at the Keller Canyon landfill. We're doing this, yeah, very exciting. We've planted over 200 other trees at the Richmond Materials Recovery Facility and in Sonoma. And what we're doing with this is, not only planting trees to restore our land and our water, but we're doing it to educate our students in our community about the effects that our materials have on folks, and how in these communities they have, more pollution in terms of water and land. And if we reduce our waste streams, that, is a huge impact. But we also want to have our students and our community engage with folks in these spaces. So I'm really excited about that initiative. And if you don't mind, I would love to get to the next slide. Oh, you can see right here, actually, before you go, I'm out there sorting through our materials. We do an audit every year where we actually open up every bag that comes out of Chew Hall. We sort it, we see what the contamination looks like. And then we're able to take those learnings back to our community to say, hey, listen, we got to change this because this is what we're doing wrong. It is disgusting, but it also is fascinating, and you learn a lot about what is in your waste stream. So if anyone can ever participate in a waste audit, I recommend it.
This is cold hard proof of walking the walk right here.
Oh yeah. They call me the garbage lady here at Haas. So I talked a little bit about the tree planting initiative, and just, what's really exciting and what we're really trying to do is really look at sustainability and environmental justice and how those go together, and how important it is for just our community to understand all these pieces from not only the academic lens, they're learning about sustainability in their coursework, but then we're able to really get them out into the environment and really talk about stewardship and what and how we can make a difference in our environment, which is why it's so exciting that we have bees and the different aspects of how they can actually be making an impact on a daily basis. Climate change can be it can be daunting, it can be paralyzing, and we have all these amazing students who we want to really engage with to say, you can make a difference and you can do something on a daily basis to make a real impact. And so by tree planting, by talking about waste, about our pollinator gardens, these are all ways that we can really engage with our students. Would you mind going to the next slide for me?
Of course.
Thank you. And then, we talk about our living, our built environment. So as I mentioned, we have a LEED certification, we have a WELL certification through US Green Building. We are talking about how you feel in a space, and how important it is to have fresh air and have great lighting. And one of the things that we've been really working towards is reusables, and we're working with a lot of students around this topic of how to really be true zero waste and how to really incorporate different priorities into our sustainability plans. And so we're working towards getting rid of all of our single-use items and moving towards reusables. We, as I mentioned, have a single-use plastic elimination policy. So we've eliminated water bottles, plastic water bottles. And really encouraged our community to bring their own, water bottles, coffee mugs, forks and spoons, and all the things that, again, seem really simple but make a huge impact. And all of this, as our students are in the space and as they are learning these things and doing these things, it's a ripple effect. Some of our students are already, working for major corporations. And so they're taking all of these things and bringing it back to their businesses. They are going to be the leaders of our future. And so it's really exciting that from a business perspective, we are challenging our students to think about climate change and sustainability in how it affects business. And, that hasn't been sort of the norm in the past. It's been about profit and bottom lines. And I'm really excited that a lot of our students are really passionate about sustainability and about social impact. And so they're taking these learnings and they're incorporating it into their leadership style and into their businesses. Can I get to the next slide, Nola?
Absolutely. There you go.
Yeah, so we've kind of talked all about some of our goals. I have them here, but why we're here is to talk about biodiversity. So, and why we got bees. And I'll be really honest with you, Nola, it took a lot of work to get these hives on campus because bees have a reputation. I don't know if you've heard about this, but they have a little bit of a reputation that is not true, because we're not talking about bees, we're talking about other wasps and so forth. But it took a while to get Berkeley to agree to have hives. We really wanted them right next to the Haas School of Business because we wanted to show our community that urban beekeeping was essential to understanding and really supporting our planet. However, that didn't fly. So we got them up on a hill across from some of our athletics fields. You can see some of the pictures here. But the reason that we wanted to get these bees is we wanted to show our community that this was really important and that we were, again, walking the talk in terms of biodiversity and really making this tangible commitment to looking at what is important from the biodiversity perspective. It also is really exciting because we've got the honey. I'm gonna pick up my little honey jar. We give these out to our corporate sponsors. They absolutely love it. It gives us an opportunity to talk about what we're doing, and how we're doing it and how we're making an impact. And it's a tangible thing that is really exciting for folks to engage with. And, we were able to do this because of a TGIF grant, which is through UC Berkeley. So our students pay a certain amount of money into the TGIF grants, and then you can apply for different sustainability projects. And so it was really cool to be sponsored by TGIF because it meant that the campus was really engaging in this. And now we're able to get our students to talk and see and do hive tours. I've talked a lot. We love our bees. I'm sorry, I get so excited about talking about them,
I'm
but
glad.
I'd love to send it back to you to talk about plant diversity.
Yeah, absolutely. So, best bees, we study honeybees, and so plant biodiversity is dependent on pollination services provided in large part by honeybees and bees of all kinds, and like we were chatting about at the beginning, all sorts of different pollinators. So the reason we pick honeybees is honeybees are kind of an ideal population to study because of their social colony structure, and they're an indicator species. So, meaning that they reflect the health of their environment and have measurable responses to changes in environmental conditions. So, kind of just to wrap your mind around what an indicator species is, there's another species you might be a little bit more familiar with, which is our engineering species of beavers, how they fully engineer their environments by cutting down trees, damming up waterways, creating wetlands that are thriving ecosystems for all sorts of other animals. So that's an engineering species, keystone species. Now, honeybees, just to get that definition in there, they're an effective indicator species. And there's some key criteria that they need to meet to be able to be called an indicator species. And these include its response to changes is relatively quick and easy to measure. It relies heavily on ecosystem health to thrive and reproduce. And it should be relatively common and have a population big enough to easily study. Its health should also be indicative of the health of other species. So honeybees meet this criteria, but most native bees do not. They're solitary, their populations aren't big and easy to study. So this is why we leverage honeybee hives as our data source, because our learnings about honeybee health can and do inform our understanding of pollinator health overall. So when we look at beehives, we don't just see a box of stinging insects, which, as you said, there's a reputation. We see live data points to study and measure the health of pollinators and biodiversity. So at each hive, on every single visit, our beekeepers collect up to 78 different data points that give us insight into the condition of the hive and the health of the colony. And then that data is collected in Buzz. So that's our proprietary hive health tracking software, and our database. So because of Buzz, we have the largest library of data on managed beehives in the world. This data fuels broader research into the trends and patterns behind where bees are thriving and why across the country, and how bees react to changing environments. Why this data is valuable? It provides insight to broader ecological conditions. It allows us to see how the bees are reacting to the changing environments. And since honeybees are an indicator species, we can infer and relate that to how native pollinators are doing and microorganisms, all types of organisms in the ecosystem. So, more about biodiversity. So more than bees, how can they inform biodiversity? How can we report on that? And how can companies disclose what they're doing to mitigate the negative impacts that they might have on the environment? So I wanted to introduce honey DNA. The way that honey DNA works is when bees are foraging on little flowers, collecting pollen, collecting nectar, those little bits of plant material, so maybe the pollen itself, maybe a bit of a leaf, something like that, the genetic material, it ends up in the honey when the bees are foraging, and then we can sequence that DNA to identify the origin of the DNA. And that can tell us what's in your honey. So the best part about it, the most fun to me is, what does your neighborhood taste like? It gives us that unique perspective of what our neighborhoods taste like. And these results have the power to build community by giving us the tools to quite literally describe, document, and share the flavor of our neighborhoods, or maybe the biodiversity of our neighborhoods. They also empower us to disrupt the landscaping industry. Earlier this week, I was just talking to a beekeeper who actually was able to get the parks department, his local parks department, to stop mowing big wildflower meadows in August. And August is a critical time for honeybees. It's hot. There's not a lot of flowers out there. It's nearly as hard for bees to survive summer as it is for them to survive winter at this time. So using these tools to empower people to disrupt these landscaping standards, to actually help not just honeybees, but all pollinators, It's a really beautiful thing. It can also inform the planting decisions behind grounds, green rooftops, and corporate campuses. It informs us working to transform our lawns into pollinator meadows by basing our planting on the actual science that we're learning from our local bees, and what plants they actually like to forage on. Honey DNA allows us to listen to the bees and understand how we can synchronize our landscaping with their nutritional needs so we can best support our pollinator allies. Honey contains DNA from plants, like I said, pollinators, other pollinators that may have visited the same flower, microorganisms, viruses, bacteria. It can give you a really awesome snapshot, a little window into your local ecosystem, what it's composed of, and its level of biodiversity. We're also super excited about our new Smart Hive technology. So that uses sensors, cameras, and AI programming. It monitors and reports hive data and conditions and offers an even more advanced insight into the biodiversity around the hive. We're testing a pilot program this year, so hopefully you'll see a lot more about that come out in the next few months.
Can I interrupt for just a second? Because we got to do a hive tour with our beekeeper Lars, and one of the cutest things that he said when he was showing us the bees is he said, "These bees, you can see they have their little pollinator pants on."
Yeah.
I just thought that was so cute and works into what they're bringing back to the hive. So I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to share that.
Well, that's perfect because what you see in this picture right here, those are the pollen pants on the right below the wings, along the side of the abdomen. That's where they keep the pollen when they're out and foraging, and then they stuff it into the little cells when they get back. The pollen pants are one of the cutest parts of bees, I swear. So going back to bees as indicator species, if our beekeeper data from Buzz was telling us that a hive was low on resources, and we saw that they didn't have a lot of plant diversity in their diet from the honey DNA, we can make a direct correlation of the health of bees being contingent on the biodiversity of their surrounding landscapes. We've also seen low plant diversity in the diets of bee colonies whose hives are right in gardens that appear to the eye to have a wide variety of plant life. But it's important to remember that not all flowers are created equal when it comes to supporting pollinator health. All different pollinators, they like different smells, colors, petal formations, flower shapes, and level of nectar and pollen. These are all factors that impact whether or not a flower is a good fit for a bee. But sometimes that flower that a bee doesn't like, it's good for other pollinators like butterflies, hummingbirds, bats, all the like. That's why having high levels of biodiversity is so important. Again, going back to that, you can't throw all your eggs in one basket. Every bit of life may need something different. And that's why having high levels of biodiversity is so important. And that native plants are not just included in your biodiversity plans, but really prioritized. We actually have a research paper that is currently in the publication process at an academic journal that dives deeper into this relationship between bee health, biodiversity, and native plant populations. So our summer intern from MIT, Katie Colbert, conducted research using the library of bee health data in Buzz and our honey DNA data. So Katie used honey DNA to test the habitat hypothesis, which our CEO, Noah Wilson-Rich, discussed in his last TEDx talk. The hypothesis essentially explains bee health as a function of plant diversity. So Katie's findings supported the habitat hypothesis, and she also was able to expand it a little. She found that there's statistically significant differences between healthy bees and not healthy bees in areas with more significant amounts of native plant populations. So healthy bees can reflect an environment not only with high biodiversity levels, but also an abundance of native plants. So after saying all of that, Danner, how is Haas planning on supporting the health of its bees that you now have on site?
Yeah, thanks. Well, we have planted a pollinator garden right next to Haas, which has lots of native plants. So I'm glad that we are following the right direction from what we just heard from you, Nola. But what's really exciting about this pollinator garden is we have gotten our students involved in planting it, and we've also gotten our students involved in protecting it. So we have a group that has been advocating, it's called Rewild. It used to be Herbicide Free Cal, but it's rebranded to Rewild. And the push is to make sure that our campus is herbicide free and that we are spraying no chemicals in and around our campus. And this is really obviously very important to the health of bees. It also means that our students and our staff and our faculty need to use organic methods for weeding. And so we've got a lot of our community enjoying the outside during lunchtime and weeding around our campus, and specifically around our pollinator garden. Our pollinator garden was where we'd hoped to have the hives, but since they're now up on the hill, we are working to incorporate native bees. And so we've actually tasked a couple of our UC Berkeley student artists to come up with an installation that supports native bees. And so I'm hoping actually in the next couple months that we will be able to unveil a very cool and very thoughtful piece in the garden that will incorporate, making sure that native bees are able to burrow in the ground and have different spaces for them to live, and a water source, and all the different plant types that, as you were mentioning, are really important to the different bee communities. And, again, this is all back to sort of an environmental justice lens, because as we make a commitment to not spray chemicals, we are, especially on our campus, we are, making sure that we are advocating for the health of not only our bees, but our people as well. So I'm really excited about our pollinator garden, and it's a place where we can have students go and sit and just enjoy as all the butterflies and dragonflies and hummingbirds are going around them.
Oh, that is so beautiful. I want to visit one day.
I hope you, yeah, please.
So we're just going to round it out before our Q&A session about how you guys can help at home. So obviously plant more plants, plant a lot of different kinds of plants, plant plants that bloom at different times of the year so that, bees that are active in the spring get some and bees that are active in the summer get some. Turn a gray space green. That's an incredible way to mitigate a lot of different effects of, the sun, reflect some stuff back out into the atmosphere, just give it a space for life to thrive. Minimize pesticide use. So pesticides have an indirect and a direct effect on bees and other creatures. Some will just kill them immediately. Others will reduce their defenses, and then they, kind of hit their demise that way. So as much as possible, minimize pesticide use. If you have to use pesticides, use them at a time when bees are not foraging. That could really help. And then advocate for legislation that protects pollinator habitats, expands pollinator habitats, expands all sorts of different habitats, because biodiversity is key. And then, of course, you can always join our research network of data yielding beehives. We've got residential services. Or again, simply plant for those pollinators. They'll come to your garden. You'll be able to see them. It's really awesome. All right, so here's our Q&A. I just want to start off real quick by asking Danner, what excites you the most about the future of sustainability action?
Yeah, I think what's really exciting is kind of what we've shared, in that, we have the opportunity to engage our students and our community in this work. And that I'm especially excited because our students are passionate about it, and that they want to really embed sustainability in the things that they're doing, and that sustainability can be in every and any role in terms of what you're doing, because you would always have that lens of sustainability. And I see that manifesting in a lot of our students. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I tell this story a lot, but when I was in my master's program, my mentor, awesome guy, asked me what it is that I really want to do. What are your goals? And at the time, I was feeling a little bit like, not sure, anything sustainability, wild nature, that sounds great. And I kind of told him, I just want to sit outside and observe and study nature, kind of Jane Goodall-esque. Like, and he very sweetly told me that would probably be pretty boring. And while that was kind of a bummer to hear, I now realize that what I'm most exciting about is preserving that opportunity for people to go outside and enjoy it. Maybe not as their full-time job and have to do it every single day, but whenever they want to, like I wanted to at the time. So yeah, that's what I'm most excited about and what we can achieve through this action.
Yeah, that's awesome. Very cool.
So we've got a couple of questions in the chat. Danny, we've got one directed to you. So what are your top tips for individuals who want to incorporate zero waste practices into their everyday lives?
Um, yeah, thanks for that question. I think it's a really easy one in the sense that you make bringing your reusables really cool. So I always have my water bottle. I always bring my utensils in my purse. When I go to a restaurant, I pull out my fork. It's thinking about what you purchase and how important it is to look at the plastic that's wrapped around your cucumber and perhaps instead make a different decision and go to a farmer's market. And so once you start to see that plastic, it's really using your purchasing power to make different choices.
Yeah, yeah, totally agree with you there. I hope that was a good answer for the person who asked.
Yeah, I hope so.
All right, maybe we can tackle this one together. So, how do you balance and justify the fiscal needs for initiatives? And how do you quantify the cost benefit for apiaries? So, I can just go off a little bit is that you really just have to prioritize. Not everything's going to happen overnight. And so maybe you take baby steps, or maybe you just go full on and you create an initiative that at first seems a little wild or out there to people. But that's also how you spark interest and generate interest and really get people to stay and come on board with what you're doing. So, like, it really just goes back to that prioritization. And how do you quantify the cost benefit for apiaries? So a big part of that is working towards sustainable apiaries. As you know, there are, the bees don't do well over the winter. About 50% or more of colonies across the entire country, maybe even world, die every winter. And so when you think in terms of a sustainable apiary, you're not trying to repopulate that apiary with other bees from other places. Beehives can reproduce, they can split into multiple beehives. And so we really want to be on that road to a completely sustainable apiary. Do you have any input there about balancing and justifying the fiscal needs for initiatives?
Yeah, I mean, I have to do this often in my work, is to really talk to folks about what what the budget's going to look like, because I think a lot of people feel that by being more sustainable, it's going to cost more. And that's, I think, something that we've actually found is not true. So even if you look at, for example, around reusables, yes, there might be an upfront cost that you have to, figure out how to, to do right away. But the benefits down the line, the ROI down the line, what you save in terms of not purchasing other materials far outweighs the financial piece of it. And then you also then can talk about the environmental impact. I do a lot of work where I have students actually help me with the life cycle and financial analysis of different things. It's a great way for them to learn. And also I get to utilize their efforts to be able to take their work and really show what is important with the initiatives that we're doing.
Awesome.
Love students. It's amazing to have students that can help you with all this good stuff.
That's funny because the next question really touches on Haas students. So, are there any stories or examples of Haas students or affiliated businesses that have incorporated biodiversity in their work to benefit them in some way, like improved competitive advantage, profit, revenue, etc.?
Whoa. Wow. Um, well, that's a really great question, and one that my mind is drawing an absolute blank on. So let me take it from a student perspective, because I think that's something that we just kind of were talking about. And I don't know if I can necessarily go right into stories, but one of the things that comes to mind is, one of our sustainability pillars is food. And it's a very passionate topic for a lot of our students. A lot of our students are really excited to talk about regenerative farming and just understanding and getting really into the systems of food. And I think this is something that has become popular, thankfully, in terms of our community, to really understand what and how our food gets to us. And so I think that this all ties back to, what we've been talking about, and just really getting into sort of feeling like you are a part of your environment, and that you understand where your carrots come from. And, we're really trying to incorporate this into our cafe, and making sure that our food that is in our cafe comes from farms right around right around us, and that we, are incorporating the honey into the cafe, and we're, bringing our coffee grounds to the farms at Giltrack Farms. And so we're connecting all of these things together. And I think that's really exciting, and something that just came to mind that I can share.
I think that's improved competitive advantage.
Okay, great. Perfect. Yeah. And yeah, it is because people want to know those stories, and they come to that, come and want to be a part of it all. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So this next question is it's interesting. I like it. So we outside of the USA have observed extreme politics getting triggered when words like ESG, climate justice, etc., are now used in business. Do you think using nature and biodiversity is a better frame to achieve the same results? Pass it to you first. Unless you want me to go first.
Yeah, I think we could have a whole different panel discussion on this, right? I think there's a lot of conversation. I think this is a really important topic, and I think we can use all these terms because they're all really important. One of the things that I was in a class, I got to audit one of our classes, which is really exciting because you get to be a student even while you're a staff person. And we were talking about about climate, and really trying to understand the difference between, climate change and sustainability, and how they're two very different but also intersecting needs and topics. And so I think, using biodiversity as a way to achieve results will be very important in some places, and then having these other topics in other places are equally important as well. Nola, I can't wait for you to answer this.
I mean, I don't know, because I guess ESG and climate justice, anything that's like really related to climate change, yeah, it can trigger some politics and some stuff to be said. But I don't think that using nature and biodiversity is necessarily a better frame, because to some people take it for granted. But I think that both are equally as important to frame and manage and give resources towards. I mentioned earlier in the chat that only 0.1% of the GDP is actually given back to habitat restoration. So if even just for the benefit of upping that number, and we start using nature and biodiversity instead of ESG and climate justice, I'd love to see that. But I also would love to see it not being so triggering to folks out there. And really working towards what we can do to bring everybody into the fold, and work together as one growing human population, that really needs to, we have the responsibility to take care of the planet that we live on. So that's what I think. And then we got one last question here. I think this is a little bit specific about best bees. So can you share some examples of specific data points that are collected during your screening? So I assume this means visits to our beehives. All the beekeepers that are watching, you may take similar notes. Maybe you don't. Maybe this will inspire you. You know, we collect data on, of course, how heavy the hive is, how many frames of honey, what the brood pattern is of the queen. That's kind of how we determine queen health. Not unique. Let's see, we count the amount of honey, the pounds that are actually harvested, mite treatments, mite washes. Those are just some of the basic examples there. So, all right. Well, last chance if anyone wants to get a question in. Oh, one popped up. Do you supply the same kinds of bees everywhere? No. We always use the calm genetics, so that could either be Italian bees, Carniolan bees, Saskatraz bees, that's what they're called. So we source regionally specific. It's the best way for the bees to thrive. All right. Well, then just going to move on to our last slide. Thank you all so much for joining us. This was a really, really fun conversation. And I'm so thrilled to see how many of you want to get into the business of biodiversity with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It was an honor to be here, and I love all that you do, and we're so glad to be a partner. So thank you.
Yeah, we're so thrilled to have you as well. This was awesome. All right, everybody. Thank you so, so much, and enjoy the rest of your days.